Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 136, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you listen to your podcast with videos on YouTube. And I'm fired up today, having a great day. Beautiful Thursday, high 70s type vibes here in the desert. Cannot complain. And boy, am I excited for pay-per-view. Well, not pay-per-view, numbered UFC, the BMF title on the line. I can't wait to jump into it. But we have a good show. I'm going to talk about some fights that have been announced. We are going to talk about some rumblings in the MMA world, recap the RAF 6 event that I got to attend in person in Tempe, Arizona last weekend. A ton of fun that was. And I am going to give you my White House prediction, as Dana White said that he will announce the full card this week. We will also be recapping UFC Mexico. So let's jump right in. So announced today, I forget the guy's first name, but Sanchez is out of his fight against Tofik Musayev. This is interesting to me because ever since I saw Tofik in my first Bellator event in Tacoma, Washington, I knew of him. But I was like, man, this guy is so talented. I would love for him to one day come to the UFC. And although he's kind of at the edge of his prime, he's come to the UFC. He got a grappling heavy opponent. He's a Thai and kickboxing type style. It didn't work out for him. So he gets a lower name in his next fight. But now insert Ignacio Bahamondes. What a fucking banger in Seattle, March 28th. Good for the Seattle fans. Hopefully Ignacio just stands and trades and doesn't look to grapple. And we got a bunch of good fights, really, with the 327 card built out. Some fights added to 328. But for the main event, May 2nd, this will be a 5-round fight in the welterweight division. We have Jack Della Maddalena, Carlos Prates, absolute banger. We have Kyle Dawkins out in his fight against Vicente Luque. So insert Kelvin Gastelum for UFC 327. That should be a doozy between two veterans. We have Mateusz Gamrot taking on Esteban Rabovics on UFC 327. Pretty well known. It's tough for Gamrot with his grappling heavy style to get opponents. He has not been faring very well at getting highly ranked opponents. Regardless, that should be a fun fight. We have the pride of the PFL Bellator going at it. Patricio Pitbull taking on Aaron Pico for the first time. UFC 327. That should be fun. We have Beneil Dariush taking on Manuel Torres. Absolute great scrap. For the interim light heavyweight title fight, we have Yuri Prohaska taking on Carlos Olberg, as Alex Pajeda is officially moving up to to heavyweight. That's the fight I expected to see, and I can't wait for that one. At UFC 328, we have Clayton Carpenter taking on Jose Ochoa, two young talents in the flyweight division. We have Roman Kopylov taking on Marco Tulio. And then on May 16th, we have Ketlin Vieira taking on Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Outside of fights being booked, there's quite a few little tidbits of news here. The big shocker this afternoon, Tom Aspinall officially signing with Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Talent Agency. We all know the beef between Dana White and Eddie Hearn in boxing. He had signed one of his big names for a Zuffa. Well, Eddie Hearn says an eye for an eye, takes one of the best heavyweights and has the potential to have one of the best heavyweight careers in UFC history. He now has to deal with the management of Eddie Hearn. Tom Aspinall is still under contract. I do think this solidifies the idea of Tom Aspinall wanting to go to boxing, and now he could work with Eddie in his promotion. Very tough day for Dana White. Just a lot of drama there. We don't need to talk about it too much, but big news. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. There will be a lot of things on social media in the coming years with Tom Aspinall. But I also do think that Dana will announce he is vacating the heavyweight title. to set up John Jones, Alex Pereira for the White House in July. They have announced that Dana White Contender Series will be in August, so the new season happening late summer, and that the Ultimate Fighter Season 34 still to be determined who the coaches are. It will feature men's bantamweight, 135 pounds, and women's strawweight, 115. So half men, half women, and that will all be on Paramount Plus. And it is assumptive with the Warner Bros. Purchase that Paramount Plus and HBO Max will be combining. So for those of you that have got Paramount, $10 a month, you don't have HBO, expect a price increase. But that's great. Two platforms that I have bound together. Hopefully it's not too big of a price jump. Then it's announced that UFC Perth, the card happening on May 2nd, will be early morning here in the States, prime time down under. The prelims will be starting at 1 a.m. Pacific on Saturday morning. The main card at 4 a.m. Pacific. So I probably won't be watching that. We'll be waking up with some coffee and start the day with some UFC action. But we had RAF 6 this weekend, and boy, did it turn into quite an event that I was so happy to be at. Outside of the drama, it was just a good card. We had my Wyoming stud, Bryce Meredith, grapple against Andrew Alvarez, a state champion out of Northern Colorado. He sadly lost via tech fall 13-2, but right at the ass end of the first round, Bryce had put Andrew in a position to get the pin. The official even marked it, but it was after the time had expired. They continued. It seemed like Bryce kind of let him finish the fight. He addressed it on social media, the difference between freestyle. I was worried he might have been injured because he does have a PFL fight coming up, but that takes precedent. Either way, fun little scrap in the first round. Bryce damn near had the pin. We had Aljamain Sterling subbing in for Chad Mendez, getting a pinfall at 52 seconds of the third round over Benson Henderson. Obviously, Aljo's in his prime, former UFC champion. Benson training at the MMA lab. He just actually got announced for a fight somewhere. I think in the PFL Belfast card, top of my mind. So, he's still competing, but definitely different eras there. A very good match here, kind of controversial. We had veteran Jordan Oliver lose 5-3 to Bo Bartlett. We had ASU alum Zahid Valencia with a tech fall 10-0 over Mahmoud Fazi CB out of Egypt. We had Evan Wick with a tech fall 13-2 over Magomed Khabib Katamagomedov. We had a 3-3 tie, but the advantage to GV Macharzvili over Stephen Buchanan. He's out of Georgia. Merab was ringside as well as Sean O'Malley and Tim Welch watching that action. We had Taj Miraz Salkazanov 9-0 victory over Keegan O'Toole, D1 champion out of Missouri. Just shows the difference between folk style and freestyle. Former ASU champ Bubba Jenkins losing to Iowa State stud David Carr, tech fall 13-2 over Bubba Jenkins. Was really cool. I actually sat next to David Carr's family, his brother, his grandpa. Got to chat them up a little bit. Potential maybe in the MMA world. I won't get too deep into the details. I think they're keeping things under wrap. But absolute stud. Had a cool video montage about his father. Gave him the veteran RAF belt. Pretty cool stuff. And then this is when the real drama started happening. We know the social media beef between Arman Sarukian and Giorgio Poyas. Arman actually won 5-3. There was a lot of controversy of some penalty points awarded to Arman because Giorgio kind of started slapping. Arman put his hands into his eyes. Arman started freaking out. There was a bunch of weird bouts. He's slapping him back. They continued the fight. Right after the fight, when Arman won, he shoved him and gave him a right hand right on the chin. Coaches came in, siblings came in. There's like 3 different brawls going on. It took about 30 minutes to clear and get things under wrap for the main event. Then it was rumored that they'll be rematching in a promotion in Brazil. And then they said that won't happen. RAF wants the rematch, so they're going to have to rematch on RAF. RAF is blown up. Again, a lot of ex-UFCers, collegiate athletes, good opportunity for people still fighting to compete, get some money, and for wrestlers to go and compete at the highest level. The best of the best are fighting here. Wyatt Hendrickson, Kyle Dake, so on and so forth. But because this is only event 6, I was interested to see how they would handle it. It seems like they are trying to just take the publicity. They've been trending and blowing up. Let's get the rematch back on Wrath. But I am intrigued to see if Dana White says something about this. Not only one, the fighters can get injured, but 2, we got guys brawling out here. There's a lot of things at stake. I'm guessing Dana White's takeaway is we'll continue as usual, but I'm assuming it's another slap on the wrist with Arman. He will not be in the good graces, as he definitely fed into this. I was originally on Arman's side. Arman already is famous. He just did his little video tour. But Giorgio's trying to get a name for himself. He knows Arman's a hothead, played into it, and made something happen. Now he's going to get a rematch and get some money out of it. That's how I see it. And then Uriah Faber taking on Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo dominating with a tech fall 11-0. They have announced some future events. The next one's at Tampa Bay. Colby Covington's wrestling. They announced some for the 8 event. Rumor is that they are trying to book Cody Garbrandt and the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley in a wrestling event. So expect to see lots more big headliners. They already have events rolling every other month roughly. But enough about that. Let's talk UFC. We had UFC Mexico. I went 7-2 in my picks, back on track. Overall, 817 wins, 408 losses, 12 no contests. On the year, I'm 37-18. So back to doubling up those losses. And I had a different opinion on UFC Mexico until I went and watched it back. But this was the first non-sellout in Mexico. I'm not sure if it is to do with what's going on in the country, with all the cartel stuff, or if the UFC has priced themselves out in markets like this. I've addressed this quite a few times as I've gone to about 10 events the past 3 years. They've outpriced me. If I have to pay $800 to $1,000 to get the top section of the 100 level, that's too much in my opinion. That's double an NFL seat for that same kind of seat. And it seemed like they started lowering the prices, but they are still high again. I'm not too sure what the future thought is here, but I do think the UFC is pricing themselves out. That's why we're not seeing these sellout crowds. But the fans did show up. They were pretty rowdy, especially towards the main card. You know, the prelims had very easy finishes, which I'm not a fan of. If it's like a -1,000 favorite and he just runs through the opponent, I want to see better quality fights. But there were some good fights on the card. I don't feel like the card gave you that, must-see moment. But I did give it a little bit higher points in my recap because some of the fights, the way they shook out, were actually fun. Like seeing Imanol Rodrigues go beast mode in there. King Green just stunting on the big boy Daniel Zellhuber. The debut of Regina Turin. We saw Damian Pinas' power. And then the Edgar Chairez, Felipe Bunez battle. Pretty good split decision there. So with that, I accidentally gave it a little bit higher of a recap. But Brandon getting smoked. Cheeto doing nothing again. I thought that kind of took a big dump on the card itself. The Mexican fighters did go 6-2, so good night for Mexico. I'm recapping it a 5 out of 10. I think I previewed it a 6 out of 10. And I was going to get it a 4 out of 10, but I watched some stuff back, and I was like, there were some moments. Let's give it a 5 out of 10. A lot of fights we did not break down that were pretty good. If you want to watch back, track these guys' careers. We had Damian Pena with a round 1 TKO over Wes Schultz. We had Francis Marshall with a round 1 submission via rear naked choke over Eric Silva. Javier Reyes with a round 1 TKO over Douglas Silva de Andrade. And Ryan Gandra with a round 1 TKO over Jose Daniel Medina. Again, the reason I didn't preview these, very lopsided. Ryan Gandra smoked them. Reyes smoked the veteran Andrade. Francis Marshall, way too slight work, same for Damian. But we did start in the prelims. Ailin Perez with the unanimous decision over Macy Chiasson. And this fight wasn't great due to a lot of grappling. I'm a fan of grappling. If it's high-level grappling, going back and forth, flowing through positions, that's not what this was. There wasn't much offense once someone got control or damage given. But it did get worse because when Ailin would get in a dominant position, if she wasn't super, super active, the official would stand them back up. I thought that was way too fast. The play-by-play crew was on it. For an example, Perez would work her ass off to get a takedown. She would be in a full mount position, which you'd never stand someone up in full mount, in my opinion, unless they've laid there for 3 minutes and done absolutely nothing. She'd be on there for like 30 seconds. And then she'd be kind of tapping Macy in the side, nothing super powerful. But the official would say, go to work. If she didn't move positions or try to elbow her in the head, they stood her up. I just think that was terrible stuff by the official. Regardless, could have cost Ailin the fight, to be honest. But regardless, Macy actually started the fight off well in the first round. She was aggressive with her striking, but then Ailin took her down. But I did think Macy took round 1. The rest of the fight, Macy hardly had any strikes landed. You know, Perez would storm forward, strike herself into takedowns, do some ground and pound until the official either fucked things up or gave Macy another shot. But Ailin would take her down again. This is a big win for Perez. She's going to be fighting the top of the division from here on out. I really don't understand her call out of Tracy Cortez, as she's in a different weight class, and I don't think Ailin could cut down. You know, Macy may hang around for a while. Still, she's not too old, but her days as a top 10 fighter in the bantamweight division are done after a stretch of some bad losses. And the stats speak for that. Ailin landed 68 total strikes, 27 of them significant. She had 6 takedowns in 10 attempts. So if she wanted it, she got it. She was and she had 7 minutes and 36 seconds of control time. Macy landed 41 total, only 8 significant. She was 0 for 2 in takedowns with 2 reversals and 3 minutes and 51 seconds of control time. So Ailin extends that winning streak to 6. Macy extends her losing streak to 3. She is 2-3 since 2024. Both women stay in the same ranking. But what's next? I would like to see Ailin take on Irene Aldana. And for Macy, if she's still with the UFC, how about Jocelyn Edwards? But that was the only prelim fight we previewed, so we're going to jump into the main card. We had Imanol Rodrigues with a round 2 TKO over Kevin Borjas. Performance of the night, 100 G's for the young flyweight. And as expected, this fight started pure chaos. I mean, Imanol came in, was going to throw fast, wild bombs no matter what. But Kevin did a good job at the beginning of the fight, loading up with good counter strikes and landed a beautiful counter hook. It sat Imanol down. You'd think it almost knocked most people out. Imanol still had his head on straight, was able to bounce back up. Beautiful strike by Borjas. But the young Rodrigues was just able to get up, scramble around. Very impressive manner to do so, to stay alive. But then he got a takedown, controlled Kevin for most of the round. I do think Kevin won round 1 on the damage and knockdown early alone. But round 2, Imanol just kept coming. Fast combos, nice kicks. You know, Kevin hung in there as long as he could, was trying to counter kicks of his own, but Rodrigues just overwhelmed him and eventually got the finish as Borjas was up against the cage. Now, the Mexican crowd was loving the young fighter and Imanol Rodrigues for sure. He is a dangerous flyweight, has a bright future. But for Kevin, tough loss. Things will not be getting easier for him as there's a lot of good young talent in the flyweight division. Statistically, Imanol landed 55 total strikes, 46 of them significant. He had 1 takedown in 3 attempts, a knockdown, and 3 minutes and 33 seconds of control time. And Kevin landed 24 total strikes, 22 of them significant, with 2 knockdowns. So Imanol extends his winning streak to 2. He's 2-0 in the UFC. Kevin extends his losing streak to 2. He is 2-4 in the UFC. So what's next? I think Kevin fighting with Luis Yarul would be good, the former Contender Series alum. And I had Imanol against Clayton Carpenter, but they just announced him taking on Jose Ochoa, which I like. So let's see what we can find here for Mr. Rodrigues. Matchmaking in action right here. Go to Tapology, look at the rankings at 125. I think Hung Sung Park would be good, but I doubt they make it. He's got 2 losses in a row. Maybe that Alden Correa guy that was supposed to fight, or Joseph Morales, who come from the Ultimate Fighter, would be good for him. Moving on, we had King Green with a round 2 TKO over Daniel Zellhuber. Whoo-wee, was King Green slick in the octagon, turned the clock back, was definitely in that flow state that we talk about. Well, for Daniel, I do think he needs to move up weight classes because he looked absolutely massive in there. I would take my best guess at lightweight, you're weighing in at 156 because you don't have to weigh 155 unless you're champ. I would bet that he weighed 175 pounds minimum the night of the fight. I'm sure the weight cut is definitely sucking some of his energy in there. I think that will help him fight better because in this weight class, guy's almost 40 years old. King was in the flow state and stunted on Daniel Zellhuber for the 10 minutes-ish that this fight lasted. Daniel was just too slow. Green was too evasive for the young boxer, shoulders shrugging off every fight, just dodging it, being like, you can't catch me, son. And King was on brand. He had his hands down low, firing from there. You can't see his hands coming. Daniel basically was throwing a 1-2, and when he would do so, King would come at him with about 1 to 3 strikes before he could really move and try to evade King. It looked like the Matrix in there for King Green. Then we saw King go back to his grappling roots. I don't remember the last time we've seen that, to be honest, but he did a damn good job getting takedowns. If he wanted them, he got them. He timed them so brilliantly. It felt like before even Daniel could, hey, I need a sprawl, King was already on both hips, blast double A, and basically taking him down like a football player. But finally in round 2, King landed just 2 clean of shots, finally put Daniel out. I thought Daniel was clearly out pretty much after his big shot. He kind of tried to stay alive up against the cage, head down. King landed about 15 to 20 more shots before they called the fight, which I have been seeing a lot of officials calling the fights later. It could be because they've doubled the bonuses. I'm not too sure. But I think he could have called that a lot earlier. It is what it is. Regardless, King continues to show the young guns in the lightweight division how to fight. A brutal wake-up moment for Daniel, as I mentioned. I hope he moves up. Statistically, Daniel only landed 17 total insignificant strikes with the submission, and King landed 100 total, 86 of them significant, was 3 for 3 in takedowns, a knockdown, and 2 minutes and 5 seconds of control time. What a fucking performance by formerly Bobby Green, a.k.a. King Green. King now extends his winning streak to 2. He is 5-3-1 since 2023. And Daniel extends that losing streak to 3. He's an even 3-3 since 2023. So what's next? Well, Michael Johnson fights this weekend. I think win, lose, or draw. We need a veteran showdown. King Green and Michael Johnson. That's a certified banger. Sure to deliver. We need to make that happen. And for Daniel, I think he gets one more chance with the UFC. If he does fight in the lightweight division, I'd say Mike Davis or Elves Brenner. But again, I highly hope and push him to move up to welterweight. Then in the co-main event, we had David Martinez with a unanimous decision over Marlon Vera. At first glance, I was trying to watch this on my phone at RAF. It looked just like a classic Cheeto fight where he doesn't do enough. Watching it back, I see how David was able to make Cheeto fight his style of a fight. First off, the easy thing to point out, David is much faster and has some serious power. I think every time Cheeto tried to close the distance, he felt David's power early, so that definitely made Vera more hesitant to plot forward on David. He's probably getting flashbacks to him and Sean O'Malley where he was too fast and he was powerful. And David would throw a bunch of strikes where he couldn't get countered, and Cheeto didn't really have much to follow up. But then David was also able to mix in takedowns to keep Marlon off of him. Each round, Perillo did a great job coaching Marlon. He was very adamant that he had to keep David on his back foot and he had to throw more volume. Each and every round he emphasized that. But David put a wrench in his plan, just fighting a brilliant game plan for such a young, raw fighter. And by round 3, it was clear Marlon needed a finish. In that round, he was much more offensive. He put on a rally the final minute and a half. Basically had David circling and running away, and he did land some good shots, but it was way too late in the fight to do so. He needs to start his fights off more aggressively, and at this point in his career, it's just too little too late. He's in a bad spot. David Martinez, clearly a talented fighter, nailed the game plan. I think it's Jason Perillo, coached him well. There was also videos of Marlon's eye. I think he does have like a sleepy eye or something, but people were worried that he might have a detached retina. That could be something. Maybe he can't see good enough. I don't know. But it's just, he's too talented. He works his ass off too hard to not give himself a fighter's punching chance. Statistically, Cheeto landed 52 total strikes, 42 of them significant. Most of the fight standing, 15 minutes. You're throwing barely more than 15 total strikes around. That is not going to win you fights, especially with a guy with the speed like David has. And David, to that point, landed 86 total, so 34 more, was 71 significant, about 30 more significant. He was 2 for 4 in takedowns with a minute and 43 seconds of control time. So David now has a very brilliant 10-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. As a doctor, he only moves up 1 spot in the rankings to number 9. Marlon extends his losing streak to 4. He is 1-5 since 2023. He drops 1 spot in the rankings to number 10. So what's next? I think David should continue to fight up in the rankings. I think Davison-Figueiredo would be a great matchup for him. And for Marlon, I don't think he'll get cut yet, but he's damn close to doing so. So how about a fight with Vinicius Oliveira with his life on the line? I think that'd be a doozy. Then to the main event, man. I've loved this guy. I almost picked him, but I just didn't feel like the time was now. Coming off a knockout loss to Charles Johnson, one of the fights I got wrong. We had Yoni Kavanagh with unanimous decision over Brandon Moreno. Performance of the night, 100 G's. FaceTime with John Jones after the fight. I had a lot of questions. First pro loss, coming off a knockout to a veteran Charles Johnson. How is he going to handle a 5-round main event on short notice at elevation? Now you're facing a big name, a former champion, and Brandon Moreno has been there, done that. Well, Yoni answered all those questions and more. I mean, coming in, if you've watched Kavanagh fight, he clearly has the speed, the power. He's technical as hell, and he's confident. He's willing to compete with anyone in the division, and that's why he took this fight. But Kavanagh did one thing that you got to do against Brandon Moreno, and that's living off the calf kick with that wide stance that Brandon has. That lead leg was chop suey after 3 minutes. I mean, seriously, Brandon Moreno's leg was fucked up. And I think that affected the fight more than we would think. But boy, did it pay off. I mean, he would then start breaking through with Brandon by pure volume. I mean, when he was jabbing, it wasn't one jab. It's jab, jab, jab. And every time Brandon's he's just getting jabbed up, his legs chopped out. And he kept Brandon at bay. And then when Brandon would just try to force himself through, he'd follow up with a beautiful right hand. But the fact that Kavanagh was able to show up with such force after suffering that knockout loss at his age, very admirable. This is championship level shit. Some of the rounds were really close in a fight, and it could have gone either way. But the right winner was announced. Brandon was just getting picked apart at distance and was absolutely rocked in round 2. I was surprised that earlier in the fight, Brandon didn't resort to try to take Kavanagh down, especially after that lead leg being so beaten up. But in the 3rd round, Moreno came on strong, really just pinned Yoni up against the cage, trying to take him down for many minutes, couldn't do so just pinned him there. I was kind of surprised both men were stuck in that position, as Yoni was only trying to break the hands, throw some downward elbows in there, look to get the underhooks, circle around, and Brandon just kind of accepted pinning his shoulder on his upper part of his leg or at his hip and just holding that lock. You do that for 3 minutes, it's pretty exhausting, but they stayed that way. Hard to score the round. I gave it to Moreno. Then they spent most of the fourth round in that position as well. But regardless, Yoni shocks the world, puts himself right in the mix. While it's back to the drawing board for Brandon Moreno, it's been a very tough stretch. And I don't think he's been the same since he had the soft retirement. And he's in the middle of his prime. Wild stuff. Anyway, statistically, Yoni landed 136 total, 97 significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. And Brandon landed 134 total, only 2 less, but only 79 significant, about 20 less. He was 0 for 8 in takedown attempts, but had 7 minutes and 20 seconds control, all that pinned up time against the cage. But Yoni now starts a new winning streak. He's 4-1 in the UFC. He enters the top 15 at number 9, and Brandon extends that losing streak to 2. He is 3-4 since 2023 and moves down 1 spot to number 7. So what's next? I mean, Kavanagh at this point, complete superstar potential. I think he's got to fight up. I think a fight with Brandon, raw dog, Royval, book that shit. And for Brandon, he's in a brutal spot. I do just like rebooking the fight with him and Asu Almabayev next. I think that's the fight tonight. But that was UFC Mexico. Definitely Kavanagh, David Martinez, and King Ring stole the show. But this week, we're back to numbered events. UFC 326, early prelims at 2 p.m. Pacific, prelims 4 p.m. Pacific, main card 6 p.m. Pacific, all on Paramount Plus. I live in Arizona, daylight savings time on Saturday, so next week I will be officially in the earlier time zone in Pacific. Card starting early, baby. But to preview this card, it really is all about the main card. The prelims are pretty light. Outside of the name recognition of the Cody Garbrandts of the world, the prelims are kind of a hodgepodge of talent like the Mexico card was. And the main card is sure to deliver. So I am previewing this also a 5 out of 10. Not very high. Some good fights. A lot of them we will not be breaking down. A lot of Contender Series alums. We have Contender Series alum Luke Fernandez taking on Rodolfo Bellato. I'll be posting all my picks on socials tomorrow. We had Road to the UFC alum Zhang Yang Li taking on Gaston Bolanos. We have Sumanderi taking on Jesus Aguilar. Contender Series alum Alberto Montez taking on Ricky Tercios. And Contender Series alum Dante Johnson taking on Cody Brundage, a short notice fill-in. We are going to kick this off. We are previewing only 2 prelim fights. We have Cody custom-made Durden, 34 years old with a 17-9-1 record, taking on Nyamjargal, Art of Knockout, Tumendemberel, 27 years old with a 9-1 record. Now, Cody, although he's on a losing streak, he has fought good stiff competition in the flyweight division. He's still in his prime at 34, and I think he's a fun fighter to watch because he is offensive and tends to turn fights into brawls. Nyamjargal is new to the UFC, coming from Road to the UFC. He is 1-1 with 2 submissions, so I do expect this to be interesting if Cody tries to grapple with submission game being such a big part of Nyamjargal's arsenal. Breaking it down, Cody has a southpaw stance. He trains out of American Top Team with a brown belt in BJJ. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. He's 3-5 since 2023. 6 of his 17 wins are via knockout, 6 via submission, so 12 of his 17 wins via finish, and 5 of his 9 losses are via submission. Interesting. Nyamjargal is a Road to UFC alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, 1-1 in the UFC. 6 of his 9 wins are via submission, and he does have a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, I do expect Cody to have the striking advantage, and he should be confident in his skills in this fight. I do expect him to mix in takedowns, but he has to watch his technique, watch his neck, as Nyamjargal is coming off a quick rear naked choke and anaconda choke victory. Cody is typically the fighter that's pressuring and coming forward. He isn't the most technical, but his UFC career could be on the line, so I assume he fights smart here. For that reason, I'm taking the underdog. The dog's coming to eat. I'm taking Cody Durden. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Cody No Love Garbrandt, 34 years old with a 14-7 record, taking on Xiao Long, 27 years old with a 27-10 record. Now, Cody, I can't believe he's here, first off. Second of all, he's still in his prime. I said that about Moreno. Didn't work out. And he was a massive fan favorite. I was team TJ Dillashaw. I know he cheated. I know all this stuff. Wasn't a huge Cody fan, especially the way he stunted on Dominic Cruz. But he is a former champion. His fighting career could be on the line here as well. And as we know, Cody does one thing well. He fucking throws with power. He has crisp, technical boxing, and Xiao lives off his striking his power as well, which should make this a very fun stylistic showdown. I doubt this goes the distance. Breaking this down, Cody trains out of Extreme Couture. He has a D2 wrestling background out of Newberry College. He's the former bantamweight champion. He's tied with Chuck Liddell, Quentin Jackson, Josh Emmett, and Montel Jackson for the most consecutive fights with a knockdown landed in UFC history, with 7 of them things. He was the 2016 Fighter of the Year, 2017 Fight of the Year against TJ Dillashaw. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's 2-2 since 2023. 11 of his 14 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 7 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Xiao is a Contender Series and Road to UFC alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's 2-2 in the UFC. 9 of his 27 wins are via submission, 5 via knockout, so 14 of his 27 wins via finish. And he has a 4.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Cody had a weird showing in his loss against veteran Yoni Barcelos last summer, and he has not looked like a world beater since 2018, so I don't expect a big change. If Xiao wants to make it easy on himself, he'd bring a fair volume of takedown attempts here, but I think that they both go at each other early. Cody lands a big power shot. You know, Xiao hasn't been finished by TKO since 2017. He's only 27. He's still young, but Cody has to find a way in this fight. That's why I'm taking another underdog. The dog's coming to eat. But I am not putting this on a parlay. Moving on. We have Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues, 34 years old with an 18-6 record and the number 13 next to his name, taking on Brunno the Hulk Ferreira, 33 years old with a 15-2 record and the number 15 next to his name. Now, it's not often we get rematches like this unless it's the very top of the division, but this is a rematch from only January of 2023 where Brunno landed a round 1 bomb to get an early finish in Rio, Brazil, his home country. I was shocked then that happened. I don't expect that to happen again. Both men are still in their primes at 34 and 33 years old. They have worked really hard to get in the top 15, and they don't have time as an advantage with their age. So I do think everything is on the line. If they want to have aspirations to be in the top 10, eventually fight for the title, this is must-win territory. Both of these dudes are heavy hitters. I mean heavy hitters. RoboCop is an absolute terror of a striker. He has unworldly power. I would say Brunno is more well-rounded. He does have some great highlights in the UFC himself, including a spinning elbow knockout against Dustin Stoltzfus in 2024. Now, breaking this down, Gregory trains out of Killcliff FC. He has a black belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. One of my favorite fighters to watch. He's a Jungle Fight, Ailin Fights, LFA, and Contender Series alum. He's a former LFA champion. He's on a 2-fight winning streak and is 5-2 since 2023. 11 of his 18 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 6 losses are also via knockout. So again, to knock out or be knocked out. And he does have a 3-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Brunno is a Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's 6-2 since 2023. 9 of his 15 wins are via knockout, 5 via submission. So 14 of his 15 wins are via submission. These guys are finishers. Now, typically, when a fighter knocks out his opponent in the first round and they have a rematch, he would be the favorite and we would expect him to win the rematch most of the time. This situation's different though. Gregory is such a big, talented fighter, and he has really improved in the past few years. What he's really improved at is he goes 0 to 100 round 1, and he's so big and muscular. I mean, he's massive for the division. He gasses himself out. That's why I say Brunno might be more well-rounded. Well, Gregory has a black belt in BJJ, but he goes so hard that I don't think he has the energy to grapple in his fights. I do expect another fight with tons of violence and a lot of collisions, so don't blink here. But I expect Gregory to still be the pressure fighter. He's going to be more prepared for the counter of Brunno. And I wouldn't be surprised if either man looked for takedown at some point. But I'm not betting against RoboCop here unless this somehow goes late in round 3 and he gasses. But for that reason, I'm taking Gregory Rodrigues. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Drew the Crimson Chin Dober. His nickname is not the Crimson Chin, but he's got that chiseled jaw. He hits like a fucking truck. He's the Crimson Chin. 37 years old with a 28-15-1 record, taking on Michael the Menace Johnson. 39 years old with a 25-19 record. Now, this is another fun showdown, although different weight classes, between two heavy-handed strikers that hardly ever fight to a decision. I mean, Drew has been in the deep end of the division, and he hasn't fared very well, but now he's getting an almost 40-year-old striker that has had a great couple of years and is just as game as anybody. Now, Drew trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He has a brown belt in BJJ, a black belt in Taekwondo. 3 of his last 5 fights have been Fight of the Night or Performance of the Night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He has the most knockouts in UFC lightweight division history with 10. It's a big division to have a record like that. He's a Titan FC, Bellator, and Ultimate Fighter alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 2-4 since 2023. 15 of his 28 wins are via knockout, 6 via submission, so 21 of his 28 wins via finish. Now, Michael has a southpaw stance. He trains out of Killcliff FC. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He has a JUCO wrestling background at a Merrimack Community College. He's a Titan FC and Ultimate Fighter alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, although he's almost 40, 3-1 since 2023. 10 of his 24 wins are via knockout. 9 of his 19 losses are via submission. And he does have a 3.5-inch reach advantage and a 6-inch leg reach advantage. Now, I expect this fight to stay on the feet. Both men respect each other's power. They've been friendly on the embeddeds this week. They respect each other. But I do believe Drew will have the power and speed advantage. But Michael has a really good mix of attacks and probably could look to grapple if he wants. If both men are patient and technical, this could be a very close decision fight. But if they want to clang and bang or it turns into that, one of them opens it up to do so, it could be a quick fight. But I'm taking another underdog. The dog's coming to eat. Ho, ho. I'm taking Drew Dober, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. These are slight dogs, by the way. But I'm going with who I think is going to win, man. Moving on. We have Rob Font. 38 years old with a 22-9 record and the number 13 next to his name, taking on Raul El Nino Problema Rojas Jr. 21 years old with an 11-1 record. Now, this is a striker versus grappler showdown, a vet versus young phenom. I mean, he's 21 years old. What were you doing at 21? I wasn't fighting in the top 15 in the UFC, that's for sure. But Rob is coming off a loss, but also has some very nice wins of late. Now he gets a thick young bull who is going to be relentless taking him down. And Rob has struggled with that as he In his last few fights, although wins, he was taken down 7 times against Gene Matsumoto, animal, 4 times against Kyler Phillips, but he still got decision victories in those fights. I think this fight can be similar, but he can't be held down, and Raul takes his opponents down. He tends to keep you there. Breaking it down, Rob has an orthodox stance. He's got a brown belt in BJJ. He's tied with Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera for second most knockouts in bantamweight history with 6. He's on a 1-fight losing streak. He's 3-3 since 2023. 9 of his 22 wins are via knockout, and he has a 4.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Raul has a southpaw stance. He has a first-degree black belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's the youngest fighter to sign a UFC contract at 17 years old and 11 months. The youngest fighter to win a UFC bout, 18 years old and 2 months. And youngest fighter to win 5 UFC bouts, 20 years old and 5 months. He's a Contender Series alum, and 6 of his 11 wins are via submission. I love Rob Font, just like I did last week with... damn it, he lost. Let's see, why am I blinking? What the hell? I'm tripping, man. Let's see. I love me Rob Font. He went out of the rankings a couple weeks ago losing. I'm blanking his name, also in the bantamweight division. Anyways, I always enjoy Rob Font. I'm always rooting for Rob. I pick him a lot when I shouldn't. I do think he's going to have a ton of success with that lead jab. He's got really crisp boxing skills. And this is a massive jump up in competition for Raul at 21? Yep, at 21 years old. It will be interesting to see how he handles it in a big spot. The problem here is Rob is so susceptible to being taken down, Raul might not want to mess around and just go for broke for a takedown early. I think if Rob can avoid that by leading with low leg kicks and his jab, he could dominate this fight and even get a finish of his own. I just feel like Rob can get a win here, but I think Rojas gets enough takedowns to win on the scorecards. For that reason, I'm taking Raul Rosas Jr. Very close to taking Rob Font. I'm not putting this on parlays. I've taken a lot of dogs here. I couldn't ride another one. I hate to do it, but I am taking Raul Rosas Jr. Moving on to the co-main. We had Caio, the natural Borralho. I was thinking of Dan Ige, by the way. Dan Ige. Caio, the natural Borralho, 33 years old with a 7-2-1 record and the number 7 next to his name. Taking on Reinier RDR de Ritter, 21-3, 35 years old, and the number 8 next to his name. Now, both of these men actually have pretty similar styles. Solid strikers, not super fast or technical, but they like to strike their way into grappling, get into clinch situations. Both men are also in their primes at 33 and 35. RDR came from the one promotion. He got a taste of the top of the division. He seemed close to a title shot until that terrible performance in his last fight against Brendan Allen, which supposedly he overworked himself, body was shut down, we'll see. And Caio has grinded his way to the top. He was shut down by Nasruddin Imavov and had to rely on his striking, but it turned out to be a close 5-round fight. Breaking this one down, Caio trains out of the Fighting Nerds. He has a black belt in BJJ and Muay Thai, a brown belt in Judo. 3 of his last 5 fights have been performance of the night or fight of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's a 2-time Contender Series alum and future FC alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak, is 4-1 since 2023. 5 of his 17 wins are via knockout, 4 via submission, so 9 of his 17 wins via finish. Now, RDR has a black belt in BJJ and Judo. He's obviously a 1 alum and former champion with 2 successful title defenses and was also a 2-division champion, which is one of 3 to do that in the one promotion. He had 2-time submission of the year in the one promotion. He's on a 1-fight losing streak, 4-1 in the UFC. 13 of his 21 wins are via submission. All 3 of his losses are via knockout. And he has a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, it's not like I watched RDR and won. I knew of his potential. He only lost to the one guy that had 3 weight championships. I think 3, maybe 2. Anatoly or something like that. He's an enigma right now. He smoked Robert Whittaker, looked like shit against Brendan Allen, has come in here, almost lost to Gerald Mearshart, I think, in his UFC debut. I can't get that shit out of my head. But I will say in a fight like this, it really who had the best weight cut, who's feeling good, who's coming in at 100%, not having injuries. I think that plays a huge part, and we never know that until after the fight or months after. But this is going to be a very interesting fight because it is so evenly contested, and both men have similar strategies. I do think RDR will be the one pressuring Caio and looking to keep him on his back foot. I do think both men will look to mix in takedowns. I don't know if they feel good about it because both guys have great submission game and grappling of their own. Caio does have less fighter miles on him. I do think he will be more durable, potentially have better cardio. So if this does go later in the fight, RDR, his advantage is he's very big for the division. So that could be a problem for Caio if he gets on top as well. I know Robert Whittaker talked about how big and strong he was. But if he can hold Caio down and wear him out, he's probably going to win. I doubt that's happening, though. Caio is the leader of the fighting nerds. They're on a winning streak. He's coming off a loss. I think he bounces back. And for that reason, I'm taking Caio Borralho, but I'm avoiding this on any parlay. It's a 50-50 fight. Then the main event we've all been waiting for. It's going to take me a half hour just to talk about these guys' accolades. For the BMF title, we get Max Blessed Holloway. 34 years old with a 27-8 record, taking on Charles Du Bronx Oliveira. 36 years old with a 36-11-1 record and the number 3 next to his name. Now, Max Holloway is my favorite fighter outside Sean O'Malley. I like Volkanovski. He's pretty close there as well. Yes, I know they've all done great things. I was an OG Sean fan from Montana. Don't have time to break that down. And I have picked against Charles Oliveira many a times. When he fought Dustin Poirier, when he fought Gaethje, and he does the same things. He gets them down and submits them. That very well could be the case here. Very well could be. But finally we get the fight I've been waiting for. It was rumored for a while. It finally happened. 2 fan favorites. You don't want to see either guy lose. The BMF title on the line. A rematch from all the way back 10 years ago to 2015, where Charles won via TKO from a neck injury of Max Holloway. And Max is one of the more popular fighters. Obviously had that absolutely bonkers of a knockout against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. What a time and place to do it. And he's had big wins throughout his career, as he was the man of the featherweight division until Volkanovski came around. And Charles is that dude as well. He had finished very good strikers. He's looking to get his belt back. The winner of this fight could force themselves into the next title shot. We don't know if Ilya is going to fight at lightweight or move up. Hopefully he stays at lightweight. I would like to see him face a lot of the top dogs here. But they could force themselves out. One of these guys that puts on a show, they're like, fuck it, you're next. Because they are so well-known and big fan favorites. But it has to be a big showing. But let's break this down. We got a list here, boys and girls. Now, Max, he's got a brown belt in BJJ. He's the former featherweight champion with 3 successful title defenses. He was also the interim featherweight champ. He has the most finishes and most knockouts in UFC featherweight title fights with 4. He's the first American to win the featherweight championship. The first fighter to defend the BMF title. 2 of his last 4 fights have been fight of the night. He always shows up and shows out. He has the second most post-fight bonuses in featherweight history with 10 behind Cub Swanson. He has the longest winning streak in featherweight history with 13. He has the most wins in featherweight history with 20. He's tied with Cub Swanson for the most wins in UFC and WEC featherweight history and most finishes in featherweight with 11. He's tied with Jose Aldo for most finishes in UFC WEC featherweight history with 11. He has the second most bouts in featherweight history with 27 behind Darren Elkins. He has the most total fight time in featherweight history, 6 hours, 58 minutes, and 57 seconds. And he's not even fighting at featherweight anymore. He has the second most total fight time in UFC history. He could break it this weekend. 8 hours, 27 minutes, and 43 seconds behind Rafael dos Anjos. He has the most consecutive bouts without being knocked down in UFC history with 29. That came to an end when he fought Ilia Topuria. That's how good Ilia is, man. He's tied with Demetrius Johnson and Yair Rodrigues for latest finish in UFC history. 4 seconds and 59 seconds in round 5 by knockout against Gaethje. That was also the latest finish in lightweight history. He holds wins over 7 former UFC champions, some of them interim, but Charles Oliveira, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Yair Rodrigues, Justin Gaethje, and Dustin Poirier. He's a good dude, too. He had the 22 UFC Forrest Griffin Community Award, the 2024 Fight of the Year and Knockout of the Year against Gaethje at UFC 300. He was the 2017 Fighter of the Year. He has the most significant strikes landed in UFC, 3,655. Most at featherweight, 2,971. Most strikes landed in title fights, 1,414. Most total strikes landed in UFC history, 3,907. Also the most at featherweight, 3,180. He also has the most significant strikes absorbed at 2,407. He has the most bouts with 100 or more significant strikes with 17 of them things. Expect it. He has the most significant strikes landed in a fight with 445 against Calvin Kattar. He has the second most landed with 290 against Brian Ortega. So not only does he have the most in a fight, but the second most. He also has the most significant strikes attempted in a fight, 744 against Kattar. The highest striking differential in a fight, 312 against Kattar. Also the second most in a fight with more than 180 against Ortega. He has the second most total strikes landed in a fight with 447 against Kattar. The most distance strikes landed in a fight, 439 against Kattar. The second most as well with 281 against Ortega. The most significant head strikes landed in a fight, 274 against Kattar. Also the second most, 244 against Ortega. If you have not watched those fight, Max absolutely stunted on Calvin Kattar and Brian Ortega. As we continue, the most significant body strikes landed in a fight, 117 against Calvin. Most total strikes attempted in a fight, 746 against Calvin. Most significant strikes landed in a round, 141 in round 4 against Calvin. He also has the second most significant strikes landed in a round, 134 in round 4 against Ortega. He has the second most significant strikes attempted in a round as well, 204 in round 3 against Jose Aldo in their second fight. He has the second most total strikes attempted in a round, 212 in round 3 against Aldo 2. Most significant strikes attempted in a lightweight fight, 446 against Dustin Poirier in their second fight. He also has the most significant body strikes landed in a lightweight fight, 64 against Poirier in their third fight. And he also has the second most with 62 against Gaethje. He has the most total strikes attempted in lightweight history with 473 against Poirier in their second fight. He has the most leg kicks landed in a fight with 57 against Gaethje. He's on a one-fight winning streak, is 4-1 since 2023, and 12 of his 27 wins are via knockout. He's so active. He has the UFC history, featherweight history, and even has lightweight records already. Now, Charles has a BJJ style. He trains at a Shoot Box Academy with a not 1, not 3, but 4th degree black belt in BJJ and a black Prajit in Muay Thai. He was the CBJJE World Champ in 2007 at Blue Belt. He's a former lightweight champion with 1 successful title defense. 3 of his last 5 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He shows up, he shows out. I mean, that's what he's known for. He has the most performance of the night bonuses in UFC history with 14. The most post-fight bonuses in UFC history with 21. He's tied with Joe Lozon and Justin Gaethje for the most post-fight bonuses in UFC lightweight history with 15. He has the most finishes in UFC history with 21. This one's funny. He's tied with Mirko Krokop. If you guys weren't UFC fans when he was there, he was a dude. Check him out. Most finishes in Zuffa since Zuffa's taken over, which is the UFC, Pride, WEC, and Strikeforce. So he has the most finishes in the Zuffa history with 21. He has the second most finishes in UFC lightweight history with 15, behind Jim Miller. He has the most submission wins in UFC history with 17. The most submission wins in featherweight history was 6. He's tied with Jim Miller for most submission wins in UFC lightweight history with 11. The second most submission attempts in UFC history with 47, only behind Jim Miller. But he has the most in lightweight, his second most in lightweight history as well, with 31, also behind Jim Miller. He has the most guillotine choke submissions in UFC history with 5, the most anaconda choke submissions in UFC history with 3. He's tied with Neil Magny for second most wins in UFC history at 24. He's tied with Donald Cerrone and Beneil Dariush for second most wins in UFC lightweight history with 17, behind Jim Miller. Good dude as well. 2025 Forrest Griffin Community Award. 2012 Submission of the Year against Eric Wisley. 2014 Submission of the Year against Hatsu Hioki. The 2021 Fighter of the Year. 2022 Submission of the Year against Justin Gaethje. The 2022 ESPY Fighter of the Year. He's a Jungle Fight, Ring of Combat, and Eagle FC alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2023. 22 of his 36 wins are via submission, 10 via knockout, so 32 of his 36 wins via finish. 5 of his 11 losses are via knockout, 4 via submission, so 9 of his 11 losses via finish. And he does have a 5-inch reach advantage. I think this fight can obviously be a slugfest. I think it could be Charles plodding forward and getting caught because Holloway is so quick. I think he'll be faster. Charles probably does have the power advantage. I also think that Charles could take him down and submit him. And I think Max can wear on him over the course of the fight. But if I had to pick 2 outcomes, it's a Max Holloway decision or a Charles do Bronx submission. Those are the 2 ways I see this going. This has an eerie familiar to my stomach when I picked Gaethje, picked Poirier, those types of dudes against Charles. Charles does his thing in the biggest, most baddest moments. I think, I've talked about this, Max shouldn't be Blessed Holloway. It should be Super Saiyan Holloway. I think we have seen the evolution of Max Holloway, and he is at his best and finest. And I think we're going to see that, his speed, his precision, the way he controls the distance, and the way I think he's going to use Charles' offensive strategy against him. I think he'll be aggressive, and he's going to play to that. I can't wait. I hope it lasts at least more than 3 rounds. That's all I want in fights like this. I don't want a quick 1-round knockout, a quick round 1 submission. I want at least 15 to 20 minutes of this. But I'll tell you right now, I'll probably put a slip in, both sides, 4th round finish to try to get a nice payday. I can't wait. UFC 326. I mean, the main card is bonkers. Holloway, Oliveira, 2 of the best to do it. Borralho, Reinier de Ritter, next title shot on the line. How good is Raul Rosas Jr. at 21 years old? Could Rob Font shut the door on him? 2 vets, slugfest, Drew Dober, Michael Johnson, and then 2 badass dudes. RoboCop, Rodrigues, and Bruno Fajeda. What a doozy. I hope it over-delivers. But then next week, we go back to the Meta Apex. It's a solid fight night card. You know, I'm looking forward to it. The headliner is Josh Emmett and Kevin Vallejos. That's episode 136. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.